You're listening to the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. Now here's your hosts, Kevin, Derek, and Alex.
All right, and welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. I am Derek, and joined, as always, by your co-host, Kevin. And it's time for the Friday Night Lights, that bet, set, snap. Kevin, how we doing?
Doing good, man. Definitely navigating the wide receiver landmines of injuries this week. It is it's nuts out there how many wide receiver 1 or 2 type players are dinged up, are injured, are already ruled out. Like it's going to test everybody's bench strength here real quick this year.
Yeah, you're not kidding on this one. Also, I'm beginning to think that maybe I should maybe stop participating in the pine and shine, especially the pine side of things, because the last 2 weeks, I've seemingly had the curse by selecting somebody there that all of a sudden we get like a late hamstring type of thing, and either missing time or projected to be super doubtful coming into the week on that one. So last week, of course, was the AJ Brown one, right? And then this week we've got the George Kittle news starting to filter through there. So
Right. And
I don't know.
I'm loving my pine for my running back pine this week. I think I might actually make up some decent points here on this one.
Yeah, it very well could be. It's gonna be tough if I keep having guys miss time though due to some of these things. So anyway, lots of fun. We'll get kind of rocking and rolling through it. Any other kind of any news notes, anything like that you want to hit up?
Oh my goodness. I guess we just start with, Debo out, AJ Brown out, Keenan Allen out, Cooper Kupp out. All these guys are not on IR. George Kittle out. Evan Ingram doubtful. There's another doubtful. I'm missing one somewhere. Oh, Jordan Addison out. Neighbors is playing. Roma Dunze is playing. Yeah. Those are the ones that come to mind, right? It's just far as highlighted names, if you will, of players who we all drafted to be, relevant starters, right? Some of them anchors even, right? There's some first round picks in there who are going to be missing time. And normally we get the running back bug, right? Where you're really pushed on running back depth and trying to figure it out there. This year early, it's wide receiver bug. And you got to wonder, right? And here's my thought process. And I know we touch on this once a year. You got to wonder how much of this is because these players don't play in the preseason. And so they go from 0 to 100 in a week's time instead of playing, a quarter one game, then a half, and then 3 quarters into the fourth quarter, right? That ramp up, that build up for your body and your muscles. Some of these are random, man. To tweak a hamstring in warmups, like that's unfortunate.
Mm-hmm.
It just is. It's just unfortunate. Now, some of these you're going to get, right? Tua's concussion had nothing to do with preseason play. Cooper Kupp's high ankle sprain had nothing to do with preseason play. But on the flip side, right, to play devil's advocate, Hollywood Brown supporters would tell me, well, Hollywood played the first preseason game, messed up his shoulder, and now he's out for the entire year. And I can't argue with that, right? It's just what's where's the fine balance? Where do we find better offensive play in the beginning of the football season? Because the first couple of weeks have not been ideal unless you're the New Orleans Saints.
Right.
It's been okay, but it hasn't been great, right? Normally we have quarterbacks pushing 300 yards. This year, it's, through the first 2 weeks. We'll see what week 3 looks like. But for the first 2 weeks, we've had quarterbacks really struggle to get to 200 yards.
You're not kidding.
It's been unfortunate, but nevertheless, here we are. That's why we draft. That's why we hammer away at the waiver wire, and we trade, and we just kind of grind through the season for situations like this. And those who are willing to put forth the effort get through it typically a bit better than those who, just kind of go, my star player's hurt already. I'm screwed. And they roll over. So your efforts will be rewarded.
Like I say, most of the times about this time of the year, there's usually a league winner still on the waiver wire.
I haven't found him yet.
Well, it's always that mystery until you look up and at the end of the season and you have that person that just reels off, a career like 3-week run in weeks 15 through 17 type of thing. And you look back and go, oh, that guy was available in week 2, week 3, week 4 on the waiver wire, right? Like a few years back, that was Devin Singletary and Rashad Penny, right? Like two guys that, turned it on and was running back 1-2 when it was all said and done for that kind of run there. Kyron Williams was kind of much that way last year. There's a lot of those. Raheem Mostert was another guy too that kind of fit that bill, right? It like wasn't drafted or drafted super late. So there's guys out there that can certainly help down the stretch, and it is just a matter of staying fluid and staying active in there as well. So speaking of quarterbacks, we do have a question coming in here, FBU over on YouTube, asking whether to start Dak or Baker Mayfield this week.
I'm going to go with Dak. The game has a much higher game total than what the Broncos offense is going to do. And realistically, I think where Baker's going to make the most impact is through Chris Godwin. Playing there out of the slot, right? So Patrick Surtain, obviously Pro Bowl, All-Pro style cornerback in his own right, will mostly be on Mike Evans. He will not typically travel into the slot, but he can in a pinch. So it'll be interesting to see where Surtain goes, but I expect him to spend a lot of time on Mike Evans and try and limit his usage. And I think that just means that Chris Godwin's going to continue this really good start to the season that he has. I have a good prop on Chris Godwin here as we kind of touch on that game here later on in the show. But I like Godwin a lot. I have him in the home league. So I like that for Baker, but I do like the Dak start. I think this game between Baltimore and Dallas is going to be a bit more high scoring. I think Dallas got embarrassed last week by New Orleans. They'll get back to the grinding stone. I don't know if it's going to fix all their defensive woes, but hopefully that means, we're able to put, a combined total of 50 plus up between those two teams. And if that's the case, you're going to want Dak there. Ferguson's back, right? So that helps Dak. CeeDee Lamb, obviously. Brandon Cooks has been having a solid start to the year. And they're still just not great at running football, right? You have Zeke do his thing, Rico Dwaddle, yeah. Who's kind of there. But I mean, for the Cowboys to win games and really move the ball up and down the field, it's on Dak's right arm.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting that you mentioned the Chris Godwin, right, on that one as well. Ended up having blurb put into one of the Fantasy Pros articles earlier this week about start sits. Mike Evans was a guy that I called for to be a sit type of deal, or a guy that's going to way underperform expectations on that one. And I have a prop on him as well. And much to what you just talked about there with the Patrick Surtain type of deal there. And Denver so far this season is giving up the fewest fantasy points to opposing teams' wide receivers through the first 2 weeks. Yes, I get it's a sample size of 2, but this is very much one of those that, Tampa Bay could very easily put up, 17, 20 points and not have to do much else in this game, right? Like Denver's offense is not going to challenge much on this thing unless all of a sudden we see a whole different version than what we've seen through the first 2 weeks, which I doubt it. So at that point, yeah, I would lean the Dak over the Baker. But very impressed with Baker's done so far this year, and I'm hoping that it keeps it up. But this week, yes, I would go Dak over Baker. Alrighty. Willie Do over on YouTube had Tua. The backs are Hall, Mason, Steele, Algier, Allen, Aaron Jones. Should I trade Rashad Bucky for for Anthony Richardson, Bigsby, or just grab Fields, Geno off the waiver wire?
I'd grab Geno.
Yep.
I'd
Especially
grab
going up against the
Geno.
Dolphins.
The Colts have not looked that good, right? And yes, Anthony Richardson's getting those steal rushing yards, but I mean, Bigsby doesn't do anything for me. You already have, Allen and Steele and Bucky as kind of backup running backs. Like, I don't know that you need another one in Bigsby. It's just kind of a wasted pick. I think I'd take my chances with Geno here for a week or so and see what you're able to come up with, because obviously Kenneth Walker is doubtful. I think that's one of the guys I was thinking of with the oblique injury. So Charbonnet is going to start again, which neither here nor there. But I think Seattle's going to spend a lot of time with the ball in their hand here, because I do not trust Skylar Thompson to be able to move Miami up and down the field. So that game for Miami is very much going to go how Devon Achane makes it go. And I think Seattle's run defense is competent enough that if they can contain and just limit the big play, I think they'll be just fine. It'll give Geno tons of opportunities to throw the ball.
Yeah, I would agree with that assessment as well, right? Like, I'm not necessarily looking to try and make that trade to get Anthony Richardson in that deal, right? Geno has a very tough matchup this week, right? The Dolphins are giving up the fewest fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks there. So I get that the matchup isn't very good. But again, this is one of those that, you're doing more of a streaming type of deal here. You're doing some of those types of things. And realistically, between Anthony Richardson and Geno Smith, you're probably projected at a difference of like a 1.5 to maybe 2 points between the two this week. So, at that point, the Tank Bigsby doesn't do anything there for you. And, while yes, the wide receivers have been challenged early on with some of these injuries, I'm not looking to try and move off the running backs there, because looking at your running backs, you have like Jordan Mason, right? That role could diminish later in the season, right? Carson Steele, very much a kind of a rental type of thing here, and I think that you're going to really see the Chiefs change some things up over these weeks here as well, right? Tyler Algier, you've got a handcuff. Allen, you've got a handcuff. Aaron Jones, we haven't seen Aaron Jones play a full season here in a few seasons. So I'm not necessarily looking to try and move off of Rachaad White and Bucky, who I've got the Tampa Bay backfield secured at that point, to go get Anthony Richardson, when my trade-off between him and Geno is really not that much there. So kind of echoing exactly what Kevin said, but little different twist on that too. So hopefully that helps. Any other thoughts on this one?
Nope.
All right, Jamie over on YouTube saying, "What's up, fellas?" Not much, Jamie. You know how we doing it. We're going through the Friday Night Lights, bet, set, snap, ready, set. Here we go. But if you guys have any questions, comments, anything like that, make sure we're throwing them in the chat. We'll go ahead and hit those things up and get those things going here as we start rocking and rolling through that. Any other kind of news, notes, anything like that we want to hit up before we start hopping into some game breakdowns?
I think the only thing, just to make sure that we're touching on it, is keep an eye on Jordan Love, right? I mean, they have not ruled him out yet. Still listed as questionable. Sounds like he was doing some work at practice. So just pay attention to that. I don't know that I would bank on him playing. It could just be some more gamesmanship out of the Packers. But for you Jordan Love owners who lost a quarterback there extremely early, you may not have a better option if he does go. So just be mindful.
Right. I like it. Jamie asking, what do we think of Chase anytime touchdown at plus 120 and the 2+ TDs at plus 850?
I mean, I like the anytime. The two
is a no thank you for me.
Yeah, I don't know that I'm willing to go on the 2. I mean, I know the return's super nice, but I like the anytime. And I mean, realistically, I have a yardage prop on him here later in the show as well, that maybe you do that and kind of do that parlay, if you will.
Yeah. I mean, I get it, right? The Washington defense has been really no good so far, right? Some big opportunities, some big holes there. But we have yet to see Cincinnati and this offense that's been so highly coveted over the past few seasons look like Cincinnati's offense, right? Like I kind of want to see them actually do something with it before I start doing that. And so certainly not looking at the 2 on that one. The anytime if I'm feeling froggy, I might go with it, but there's some other ones that I'd rather go with, I think, on that one. Any other thoughts on this one?
No, and I think Jamie's next comment makes a ton of sense.
Right, he's saying that he'll go a little bit higher on the saying he'll go higher on the anytime and a little bit lower on that one there. So right, a little bit of a hedge and kind of rocking and rolling through that. So
I don't mind that. Why not?
Very cool. All righty. Well, are you ready to start jumping into some of these games and we'll start breaking them down?
Yeah, let's touch a couple of them. See what we got through or get game wise before we start getting some questions.
All right. So we'll go ahead and hop in here. We'll start breaking down some of these games. And guys, if you got questions, comments, lineups, throw those out in the chat. Let's go ahead and rock and roll through those and help get lineups set, get things ready to go here for this week. First matchup, we're going to hop in and take a look at the LA Chargers taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers. Pittsburgh favored by 1.5. The over under in this one is 35.5. Thoughts on this one?
I might take Pittsburgh at home in this one. I think it's going to be one of those kind of ugly ground and pound games, right? It's just going to be old fashioned football of whose offensive line can kind of place their will over the other team's defensive line. So definitely how Harbaugh wants it, and really how Mike Tomlin wants it right now as well. So I'm 35.5. I am going to say the under in this matchup. Just neither offense has really given me a reason to feel like they're going to jump off the board for 24 points and really push that over. So we're going to say the under, but it's going to be pretty close to it. And Pittsburgh at home. Why not?
Yeah, I think I'm kind of right there with you. Except I am going to, I think I'm going to lean with the Chargers in this one, right? They ended up staying on the East Coast after the game last week. So, we don't, hopefully we won't necessarily see the same struggles that we've seen with these West Coast teams heading east for those early window games on Sunday morning. The Chargers have been kind of notorious for that in the past there. So I don't think we see that one happen. And I do think that the Chargers have certainly been kind of on a bit of a tear, right? New regime, new things kind of shaping up there. So I do like the Chargers to cover this. I do like the under to come into play, right? This is one that I don't know that I trust either team to put up more than 18 points. So with neither team putting up 18, I'm going to lean on that under there. One of the props that I really like was J.K. Dobbins over the 53.5 rushing yards on this one, right? We've just seen him come off of back-to-back games, well over 100 yards. He's been hyper efficient. That the team is certainly doing a lot in the groundwork there, and I think that we see some of that continue. So wouldn't surprise me if we see J.K. Dobbins with another over rushing performance in this one.
No, that makes a ton of sense. One that I really liked this game was George Pickens over 47.5 receiving yards. Obviously, the Pittsburgh passing attack is not extremely dynamic, but Justin Fields has done a good job looking Pickens' way, right? Had a little bit of a tougher matchup against Surtain last week. I think this eases up for him here this week back at home, having the crowd behind you and whatnot. So I think Pickens gets this total fairly easily. I wouldn't be surprised to see him with upwards, close to 60 yards instead of the 47.5.
Yeah, I like that one. And we got Andre saying, "Sup, fellas? Not much. We're running through some games and answering questions for folks." Jamie saying that this particular game has to be one of the shortest games with all the running. You're not kidding. This one might be other teams are getting into the fourth quarter, and this one's already done in that early window. So Jordan over on YouTube saying, "Sup, fellas?" So not much. We're just breaking down some games, going through it. We're going to go ahead and hit up one more matchup here, and I do see some comments coming in here. So we're going to hit up one more matchup, then we'll head over to the chat, hit some comments up, and keep rocking and rolling that way. So, guys, if you have questions, you have comments, things like that, throw them in the chat. We'll answer them here in just a moment. Next matchup, we got Chicago, Indianapolis. Indianapolis is favored by 1.5. The over-under on this one is 43.5. Thoughts on this one?
Again, I'm going to go the home team in a tight one. I'll take the Colts. I don't know that they necessarily deserve it with the way that they've played here the first couple of weeks, but I'm going to take the Colts, and I'm going to take the under in this one too. Like, I just have not been super impressed with the Chicago offense. I know the Colts at moments can strike big with some of the big play that we've seen here with Richardson going over the top. But I feel like 43.5 might be a touch too much. I wouldn't be surprised to see something close to 40, 41, that type of thing for a total, but I don't know that we're going to get to the 40, 44 points. I think that's kind of the big total for these two teams and how they're performing offensively at the moment.
Yeah, you're not kidding on this one. I'm also going to take the under. I do think that we haven't really seen a whole lot of offense come through from either team. So far this season. Couple that with the fact that the Bears' past 4 road games have also gone on the under side of things. So I'm leaning that way, and that's the way I'm gonna rock and roll there. As far as the points go and the spread on this one's really tight. I'm gonna end up leaning on the Bears. I think that this is a 1-point game either way when it comes down to it. And with the 1 point, that hook scares me off of it just a little bit. So I'm gonna take the road underdog there with the points that they're getting. So and then one of the props that I really like is for Caleb Williams to go under 215.5 passing yards.
No. I'm taking Alec Pierce over 32.5 receiving yards. He is leading the Colts in routes run. He's leading the Colts in air yards. He's leading the Colts in receiving yards. He's leading the Colts in receptions right now. Now, they've been a couple big plays, but that's why I like this prop. 32.5 is a big play. He needs one grab for 35 yards or 33 yards, right? And this is in the money. So I don't need him to come down with 3, 4, or 5 catches. I need 2 grabs for 35 yards, and I'm home scot-free. So I like this Alec Pierce prop here with how he's being utilized by Anthony Richardson early in the season.
I like it. All right, let's go ahead and hit up a couple of questions, and we'll go ahead and head to the next matchups then. So Andre over on YouTube asking any moves you'd make for this squad. It's a 10-team league, full point PPR, 3 wide receiver, 1 flex, Josh Allen, Mason, Kenneth Walker, Jamar Chase, Garrett Wilson, Olave, Kelsey. Flex has Godwin, benches P. Ryan, Monty, Brian Thomas Jr., Ridley, Ferguson, Jonathan Brooks, and Pacheco is on the IR.
Well, I would put Monty in over Kenneth Walker because he's not going to play this week. So if you haven't done that, I would go that route. I'm tempted to play Ridley over Olave.
Yeah.
Only because Olave is eventually going to get his. So maybe you don't, right? You don't want to miss kind of that resurgence. He's had a down first couple weeks. A lot of things going Shaheed's way. And with this offense clicking, maybe Olave it's the right bet. But yes, definitely get Monty in there as opposed to Kenneth Walker. Well, I guess if you're starting Mason, never mind. You're starting 3 receivers. I see what he's doing. So make sure that's Jamar.
Yes, Jamar. I think it's
okay,
Jamar.
Sorry,
Chase.
I read Jameer for a second. Sorry, my apologies. So yes, make sure Walker's out. Make sure David Montgomery gets in there, and then other than that, I don't have a problem. You got to play Kelsey over Ferguson. Like you just kind of have to, and you just hope that the Kelsey numbers come around. But I think Godwin will make up for some of the potential shortcomings of Travis Kelsey. But Jamar Chase is going to have a big week here, so I think he'll be all right.
Yep. The only other thing that I would add on to what Kevin said is as far as kind of the lineup goes, you're going to switch Jamar Chase and Chris Godwin from the flex to the wide receiver there with Jamar Chase or Jamar Chase playing in that Monday night game, Godwin playing on Sunday. That way, if anything should happen in the in the pre games and some of the warm ups or anything happen from Sunday into Monday type of thing, you have flexibility still there with that flex spot. So that would be the only other thing that I would add on to what Kevin said. Alrighty. Terrence over on YouTube, is Pirine or Hunt the better ad?
Kareem Hunt probably has a higher ceiling than what Samaje Perine has. But Kareem Hunt is not being activated off the practice squad, at least for this first game. So if you need instant gratification, it has to be Perine because Hunt's going to be a zero sitting out there. But I do think going forward, Hunt will be more of an actual ball carrier. I think P. Ryan's there more for pass pro and the occasional reception out of the backfield.
Yeah. And really it wouldn't surprise me with this offense moving forward that we see them less reliant on the ground game that we've seen, over the last season or so, and we start seeing Mahomes air it out a little bit more so, right? And we see a lot more short passes and using that short pass as a kind of an addition to the running game to get the ball moving that way. So I'm not super big on either one, but if those are the options, I do like, I co-signed to what Kevin said. FBU. So Mixon is out, need an RB in that spot. So I pick up Steele. I have Zeke, Trey Benson.
Is Cam Akers sitting out there on the waiver wire?
Yep. That was
Cam's the one who's getting the start, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and then whatever happens, you can, depending on what you have to do to mix it around, but, Cam Akers would be the first one I'm going for. Obviously, Steele and Zeke. You have in case you don't get Cam Akers, so at least you have two guys who are going to be playing. Trey Benson will play, but his workload has not been enough to warrant a spot in a starting lineup. In a starting lineup just yet. So being able to pivot off of Mixon, if Cam Akers is out there, I'd grab him, start him over probably Zeke.
Right. Yeah, I would as well, especially since I believe I saw some reports earlier today too that Dameon Pierce is also not going to play in this one as well. So it is quite literally the Cam Akers role on that one, and the fourth stringer at that point would be coming in to potentially kind of spell him. So I really like that Cam Akers call. Terrence, is Josh Downs worth a bench spot? Not for me at this point.
I think it depends on what you're giving up.
That's a good point.
Josh Downs looked decent in the preseason. We did see a lot of hype around him with what some of the possibilities were and how they're feeling about him coming into the year for Indianapolis. So I think it depends on who you're dropping. But I don't know. Let's see. If we scroll down, Derek, I'm wondering if this is the same roster of wide receivers.
I believe so. So Terrence
with Downs. So it's not bad because you want the depth. Obviously, Chase, Adams, and then JMO are kind of your top three. Cooper you can flip in there until Kupp is healthy. Brian Thomas Jr. isn't a bad play. So you do have some good wide receiver depth. If with that roster construction, I would tell you that you don't need to have Downs if you have another area, right? If you really feel like you need, another tight end, right? If you waited on tight end to get this lineup and you want to start someone else or grab someone else, Hunter Henry may not be a bad stash if you're looking to play musical tight ends, that type of thing. But I like your wide receiver room. I mean, I definitely want Cooper Kupp healthy for my own selfish purposes in the home league. But I do like it with Chase, Adams, JMO, and then Kupp and Thomas to kind of back him up.
Yeah.
And Cooper.
Yeah, no, it's a really solid wide receiver room. So I don't know that at that point that kind of solidifies it that for me that's he's not worth the bench spot at this point, but it does depend upon what you'd be requiring to give up, as well as, what the opportunity costs are by rostering him versus, what you could be looking at in some of the other things. So, because Terrence, if you've got a wide receiver room that maybe doesn't have the depth or things like that, it might be worth looking at picking up a Cam Akers. It might be worth looking at if Carson Steele by chance is still happen to be on your waiver wire. Things like that might be worth picking up some of those guys that could have a little bit of a showing this week, and you could potentially try and flip those down the road, right? So while the initial reports on Mixon were, missed major injury, injured enough that we're not going to see him this week, and if that turns into 2 weeks, you could have something there at the running back position and potentially try and flip that down the road. So, alrighty, Jamie putting it out there that with low scoring games, he likes to call the game prop that neither team hits 30 points, because he usually hits on those. So, not a bad way to do it, Jamie. I like that thought. Let's go ahead and hit up this one. SRLJ. I don't know that I've seen SLRJ in the chat before, so welcome in. 12 team half point PPR. Which side of this trade do you prefer? Lamar and Chase Brown, or Jordan Love and JMO? We'll go ahead.
With Love seemingly so close to coming back, I think I like Love because I like JMO more than Chase Brown.
Right.
So
yeah,
if we were really still thinking we were going to be a couple weeks out and they were offering that up, then I'm probably leaning the other way. But with Love flirting with coming back possibly this week, sounds like if it's not this week, nothing's guaranteed, right? There's always setbacks, but if they're hinting this hard that he could play, I think next week's a very real possibility for him to come back. So you only need one more week without Jordan Love. And I'd rather keep the big play upside of JMO, because at the moment, Chase Brown, yes, his yards per attempt are higher than Zach Moss's, but his snap share and his just overall usage is much less than Zach Moss. So I'd rather have it with a receiver than a running back.
Right. And Zach Moss was, when you look at a lot of the stuff out there industry wide, and a lot of stuff circulating through the fantasy community there, Zach Moss was a favorite this week from a lot of folks as a buy low candidate. So a lot of folks still believe in the kind of the upside there as well. So I like the Love and JMO side of that as well. But SRLJ did let us know the roster as well. So the full roster is Love at quarterback, Rashee Rice, Devonta Smith wide receiver, Breece Hall, Devon Achane at running back. Tight end is Andrews. The flex is Ayuk. JMO's on the bench. Honestly, I'd probably flip JMO in for Ayuk at this point.
Oh, see, with everybody being gone, San Francisco, I like it with Ayuk in.
That's a fair point.
He's the only guy in town.
Because both Debo and Kittle are out this week.
No McCaffrey, no Debo, no Kittle.
Right, and Mason hasn't filled in at the running back, catching the ball like McCaffrey has it all this season. So
right, absolutely. So I do like the Ayuk play there. Yeah, I like that lineup a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I really do. So I have no issues with that starting lineup. I would not like to be going against it week in and week out. That's for sure.
Facts. We already hit up that one from Terrence. All right, let's Dub Nation, Zach Moss or George Pickens PPR.
I'm gonna go Zach Moss because I think eventually this game between Cincinnati and Washington is gonna get out of hand, and then they're just gonna start running the ball. So Pickens, while earlier I did say I like his prop of over, what was it, 47.5, I think it was, something like that. I think for the whole game and going up against a really bad Commanders defense, I think Zach Moss would be where I would lean for a little bit more certainty.
Yeah, I would agree with that, right? Like Zach Moss is that Washington defense. I don't know that it can be understated how bad that defense truly is this year. So, fantasy gold when you see those matchups come through there. While Steelers game and Chargers game isn't overly high scoring is what we're anticipating. We're not anticipating that to be overly high scoring. Whereas I do think you're right. I think we're going to see Zach Moss get a lot of run, and wouldn't surprise me that we see close to 20 touches for Zach Moss here in week 3. FBU start Amari or it's Makers, but I believe that might be Neighbors.
Yep, Neighbors.
Oh, and he did say that it is Neighbors. So Amari or Neighbors this week.
Neighbors for me.
Yep, same. The Browns, I just haven't really seen that come to light, right? Like Joe Flacco was back there. It'd be a pretty easy Amari Cooper, but let's see what Deshaun can actually do and see that put together for more than, I don't know.
How frustrated do you think the Browns front office is, knowing that they could have kept Joe Flacco and just gone that route?
Right.
And
backtrack.
I get they got to play Deshaun, and you're thinking that he's finally going to turn it around and all these things. But how many bad performances from Deshaun Watson are we going to see and then make excuses for as a football community? Like, Jamie, buddy, I'm sorry, if you're still listening in, but y'all need a quarterback change big time. Like throw Winston back in there. Like at least let him rip it, because Deshaun Watson is not facilitating this offense very well. And I don't understand, aside from the follow the money logic, why he's still starting as opposed to telling him to sit back and kind of get his head together and letting JMO take a start or two.
Yeah. Well, and you backtrack that to even further when, they've got they had a guy in town that currently that's currently QB number 1 overall through the first 2 weeks of the season for fantasy purposes in Cleveland, that they took with the number 1 overall pick, that is tearing it up somewhere else. So I think some of the journey that Baker went through certainly helped progress him to this point, but that's one of those that like what if type of things, which with the Browns quarterback situation, that seems to be a lot of kind of what ifs throughout the organizational history there. So, but no, I agree with you. There's a whole lot of that, that I've got to see Deshaun and Amari actually get on the same page, and Deshaun be able to put up 250, 275 yards consistently and let Amari eat in order for me to really start going that route and leaning that way. So kind of a long-winded answer to say Neighbors. Any other thoughts on this one?
Negative.
Alrighty. So Dub Nation asking, who are your top 3 defenses? I'm assuming that just means in general, versus like what maybe be on the waiver wire. So let's go ahead and rock and roll through that. Who do you got as your top 3 defenses for the week?
Let's see here. I am going to take the Buccaneers against the Denver Broncos.
I like that one.
I'm going to take I'm going to take the San Francisco 49ers against a really beat up Rams team right now, just defensively. So I think that's a good one. And the Buffalo Bills against the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Okay. I like those. And I would have San Francisco's kind of certainly in the mix for me. I do have the Buccaneers as a top 3 this week, right? Like Denver. Yeah, there's enough said about the offense with the silence there, right? Like, not only that, Bo Nix is likely to throw another interception or 2 inside the red zone, so that'll spare you from some points being put up against your defense there. I would have told you the Jets going up against the Patriots last night, right? Like that was one of those that we thought would be an incredibly low-scoring game, low-scoring affair. Did think that would be a little bit closer with both of those teams being scored in the teens, but didn't happen. But I would have had the Jets
look like himself from 3-4 years ago on Thursday night. Rodgers looked good.
Yep. It'll be interesting to see what'll happen if he and Garrett Wilson can ever get kind of on the same page, but they seemingly last night were a little disconnected. So it'll be interesting to see how that one goes forward, but I just said the Jets would have been in there. Another one that I would tell you, that I think will be up there is going to be the Cleveland Browns defense this week. Just simply from the standpoint, they're going up against the Giants. The Giants we've seen like one performance out of them. I don't know that we're going to see another one here. And that Browns defense has been pretty legit. The Giants seemingly have yet to find a running game on that. Cleveland has some of the best kind of trio of cornerbacks that there is, and really with only one offensive kind of receiving weapon there, I don't like the Giants' chances to move the ball and put points on the board. So those would be kind of the top three. Jets are the Browns, Jets, and the Bucks for me. Any other thoughts on that one?
No, I think you could argue Vegas for this week against Carolina, but I do think switching over to Andy Dalton is probably going to be a little bit more potent than what they were here the first couple weeks. So that's why I'm staying away from Las Vegas as a top 3 pick. I'm trying to understand how much different it's going to look with Andy Dalton as opposed to Bryce Young. So, I'm going to keep him out of my top 3 for that reason this week. I think another potential one could be the Seahawks. Skylar Thompson. Like, if you believe that the Seahawks can find a way to contain Devon Achane, I don't see Miami doing much through the air this week. With Skylar Thompson kind of getting his feet wet as the starting quarterback. So I think Seattle could be sneaky. There's a lot of turnover potential in that one.
Yeah.
And I think that realistically, because it's both the under, we don't expect a whole lot going on. The Steelers or Chargers, I think, are also kind of sneaky plays. Typically, you're not going to get in the top 3 without turnovers, and neither team throws the ball a whole hell of a lot. So that's kind of why I'm shying away from either one of those, but there's potential there.
You're talking turnover potential. The Packers playing Tennessee. I would not put it past Will Levis to have another red zone turnover at this point, right? Like, that seems to be his forte. So yeah, there's another potential there. But yeah, so some good options there. Great question there, Dub Nation. Andre asking, are there any trades you guys would try and make for my squad I sent in earlier? Let's go ahead and go back to that one.
I'd be trying to find some real running back help because Mason's volume will fall off. I don't know if it's going to disappear, but Mason's volume is going to fall off once McCaffrey gets healthy. Walker's obviously been MIA for 2 weeks for you now, and you got Monty there to help with some bench strength, which is good. But Brooks and Pacheco are both on IR, so you're either going to have to ride this out or just get crazy creative here for a moment. I'm trying to think what I would do because I don't want to take away from the rest of your starting lineup. Because right now, with having Monty and Mason in there, yes, you have the other injuries, but I think maybe you just ride it out here for a couple weeks because Kenneth Walker will get healthy. Jordan Brooks will come in. You'll see what that looks like, and then Pacheco. But it's I think you might have a tough time finding someone who's not going to try and pick off one of your top receivers for a running back. And I, if I were you, I would not want to do that.
Yeah, because that's one of those that if I'm working a deal, I'm going to work a deal with either Brian Thomas Jr. or Ridley as the guy that I'm looking to try and flip on that one. And I don't know that you're going to have enough wiggle room there to make that move.
Kelsey, the name power might get that done, right? Ferguson, yes, Travis Kelsey used to be the clear number 1 at tight end, but now you have all these different options, and tight end has not started out with a bang here this week or this season so far. So it's not that Kelsey couldn't get there, but if you wanted to combine Ridley and Kelsey and then go after or Kelsey straight up for ETN, maybe that might be about that range. I don't think the Achane owner is going to do anything. Maybe the Mixon owner, but now he's dinged up too. So you don't need another dinged up running back on your team when you already have Walker, Brooks, and Pacheco. You don't need another guy who's fighting an injury with Joe Mixon. So that kind of takes that out of the fold here. So
Actually, here's something I would look at. Depending upon what Brian Thomas Jr. or Ridley does, right? If one of them has a really good game this week, I would try and turn and flip that for like a Ramondre Stevenson. Yeah, just coming off of a really kind of poor performance there, right? Like you may get a little bit of recency bias there and be able to kind of make a move on something like that. But yeah, there's some potential there.
Yeah, or you might be able to go one of those two straight up for like an Aaron Jones, maybe
Mhm.
Josh Jacobs
Yeah.
type
Um,
thing, right? Like if you're just thinking that next tier down, like I don't know that you need all pro running back, but you just need some consistency and some health. So, I mean, and if someone really wanted to take Brooks off your hands as part of the deal, I wouldn't necessarily turn it down. I don't think Brooks is going to be highly relevant with the way Carolina's offense looks this season. Next year, I think he'll probably be a little bit better, but coming back from injury, they're going to slow play it anyway. They have 3 running backs in front of them on the depth chart right now. Like it's going to be an uphill battle for Brooks to see meaningful touches to where you want to start him anyway. So if you have someone in your league who's in love with Brooks, flip him. Like
yeah.
see what you can get out of it.
Brian Robinson Jr. might be another guy too that you could potentially target, right? Like kind of
Yeah, they're
clearly
ugly points in the count.
Yep, exactly, right? And he's RB1 territory. He's up against a tougher matchup this week. So again, right, this is one of those that you could potentially try and flip a lower performance there and try and hope for one of you guys to have a little bit of an upswing there and try and see if you could get a deal done there, right? Like so those would be some potential options.
Kelsey for Derrick Henry would be one that maybe you consider because
Yep.
Henry hasn't blown up, right? But as soon as Henry does have a blow up game, that price tag is going to get really steep. So maybe Travis Kelsey for Derrick Henry,
Yeah.
something like that, right? Kelsey and I mean maybe you pair Kelsey and Brooks for you know Derrick Henry and whatever tight end they have. I mean, if it's somewhere, David Njoku or something like that, if they're frustrated with injuries at their position, right? If they have an Njoku, if they have an Evan Ingram,
They have Kyle Pitts.
Kyle Pitts is one. I think Pitts has a good week this week, finally.
Yeah.
But I think there's some options out there for you, but it's probably they're going to want a top end receiver. You need to steer them away from that. Like that is my bottom, like kind of summarizing everything that I've been trying to say is I would look at flipping Kelsey. I would look at flipping, Brian Thomas Jr. or Ridley. I would look at flipping Brooks if someone's in love with him. But that's kind of the extent. Like that, those are the guys I would be comfortable giving up. P. Ryan, obviously, if someone needs a pot sweetener, take P. Ryan. Who cares? And outside of that, like I'm not touching Jamar Wilson, Olave, or Godwin. Like, no, I'm not doing it.
Right. Yeah, no, I like it. Alrighty. SRLJ over on YouTube saying thanks guys for the analysis. Chandler over on YouTube, start Ford or Akers. If Ford, would you start Akers in the flex over DeMarco Robinson? I'm starting Akers, I think.
I'm starting Akers too, just because Ford and Foreman looks like they're gonna be splitting carries in Cleveland here for a little while. So yeah, the matchup's a little bit juicy, right? Going up against the Giants, but you're taking that, you're dividing it by 2, right? The running back performance, you're dividing it by 2. There is no one in Akers' way. Like he could absolutely see 25 touches in the game against Minnesota this week. So I would take the touch count. I think you have to leave Robinson in just because the Rams have to throw the ball to somebody, right? It's him, it's Whittington. Obviously, Kyron, kind of whatever they're doing. Maybe Corum gets a little bit more involved, but I think you have to leave it in for the potential that San Francisco is going to get up, even with being down Debo, McCaffrey, and Kittle. I still think San Francisco's defense is going to make it really hard on the Rams, but I think the Rams are going to be playing catch up. So you got to leave Robinson in for those garbage time points.
Yeah,
That's one running backs don't get garbage time points in today's NFL.
it's true. All right, I like it. Ray over on YouTube. Welcome back in, Ray. Should I start the Raiders defense versus the Panthers at home, or the Panthers at home versus the Panthers, or Chargers defense versus Steelers on the road? As of now, I have the Raiders in because Herbert is questionable for the Chargers. I'd lean the Chargers on this one.
Yeah, I would lean the Chargers, but I think you're 6 in one, half a dozen in the other.
Yeah.
I really don't know that either defense is going to be put in a position to create a bunch of turnovers. So now you're just looking at yardage and point differential. I mean, we know Justin Fields could get extremely electric on the ground and cause problems for the Chargers defense in a way that we really haven't talked about him in this year yet, but we know he's capable of it. So I think he has he's the quarterback with the highest game wrecking ability
Right.
of this slate. So yeah, if that's what it is, I wouldn't hate the Raiders.
Yeah. I mean, I like that thought of kind of 6 1 half dozen of another, right? These are teams in when I'm doing my own rankings, I've got them kind of right back, like back to back. Like we're talking, 8 and 9 on this one. So I've got the Chargers slightly ahead just because I do think that is going to be a game where it's not going to surprise me if the winning team has 13 points put up into it, and we see an incredibly fast game on this one. So, but that's a great point there as well, right? Like the Raiders and certainly could, I think probably have the more potential for some turnovers there, and also, you don't have the that game wrecking ability across the line. So. Not a bad call, but you've got either one of our thoughts there, and you can kind of rock and roll with that as you will. Terrence over on YouTube, is the Bills a good defense special team to roster rest of the season? Currently roster the Chargers, been streaming, drafted Atlanta, some other options, Broncos, Vikings, Patriots.
I really like the Bills this week. So if that's out there, the Chargers are interesting because they play in the AFC West, which means they play the Broncos twice, right? So I think that helps out a little bit. But the Bills, we just saw what the Bills did to Miami. I think they're going to be kind of the same way because they have New England twice. So the Bills' competition will be a little bit steeper, but I'm not scared of that holistically. So, and generally, the Bills' offense puts enough points on the board that it causes pressure for the other team to throw the ball, which creates opportunities for turnovers. So it's up and down, but I was actually looking at the Bills' rest of the season in one of my other leagues here earlier this week, actually, and was kind of mulling over the same decisions. And I did end up going with the Bills just because I think that they realized they're going to have to play more consistent sound defense, given the fact that there's not the true alpha receiving option with Pitts and Davis both gone right now in Buffalo.
Yeah. Yeah, between what you've got listed there, and he also threw Green Bay in the mix. I just saw that as well. Between what you have listed there, I would say the Bills are probably the best rest of season out of the teams listed there.
And it's only week 3. Like, I don't
Right.
anticipate any defense I have in week 3 to stay on my roster the entire season.
Right.
Like, they're so interchangeable and matchup dependent, and there could be weeks where the week the Broncos play the Panthers. No one's going to have the Broncos for the entire season, but here in a few weeks when the Broncos play the Panthers, I'm going to tell you that the Broncos will be a top 2 defensive play that week.
Watch that's the week that Andy Dalton heats up for 350 yards and 3 tutties.
Maybe it is, but everything, all the metrics, all the statistics, all the just watching the game, the eye test tells you that the Broncos will be a top 2 or 3 defensive play that week. So yes, I'm saying no to them right now, but if I can drop a Tennessee, Jacksonville, Philadelphia type defense that's kind of in the Cincinnati, that's in the middle of the road, to pick up a defense that could get me an extra point or two that week in half point and full point PPR leagues, why the hell not? The points add up. So that could be the difference between, scoring 118 and taking a loss and 120 and taking a win.
Well, that's fair. I like it. All right. Jamie saying hit the like button and support the great old boys. 100. Appreciate that, Jamie. Thank you. Jordan over on YouTube saying Kelsey is about to heat up. Maybe the
Why?
fact that
Why?
I was gonna say maybe the fact that their running back is or the running back game takes a little bit of hit. Maybe we do see a little bit more of a passing emphasis there, but I am still in the believing standpoint that I've got to believe it to see it.
As good as Travis Kelsey is, we're not going to see him with 7, 8, 9 targets in a week until week 15 or later. My opinion. There's no need. Like, he is there. He can be a part of the running game. Yes, he takes coverage and people pay attention to him. That's why Rashee Rice is going bonkers right now. That's why Xavier Worthy is getting some of the opportunities that he has. Like, he is he's arguably the best decoy in the NFL right now, because he has to command attention from linebackers and safeties. And when you're commanding that coverage, it doesn't matter if it's Steele or Hunt or even Pirine. It's a lighter box for the running back. And then the safety can't play over the top of Worthy when he's going deep, or they suck too far in, the linebacker does, and that's how Rashee Rice has been able to fit in between the linebackers and safety so many times this season. Like, I love what Kansas City's doing, but Jordan, I'm going to disagree with you on this one. Like, does it uptick? Like, do we see him with 4 catches instead of 2 or 3? Possibly, but I don't think he's going to see 8 or 9 opportunities. Like, I think he's going to be, you know, 3 for 5 or 4 for 5. Maybe he gets in the end zone because he's able to kind of shimmy his way there, but his high volume 80+ yard performances consistently are going to be really hard to replicate given the offensive makeup of this Kansas City Chiefs team.
I like it. All right, the Cuminator. Should I trade Kittle for Pitts from Atlanta?
What you think, D?
The only way I'm making this deal is if I think Kittle's going to be missing long term. Right? Like that's where I start doing it. If I think that this hamstring's going to linger to the point where we see him miss 3-4 weeks, okay, maybe I might pull the trigger on this, but if you think that he's going to be back next week, probably not, right? Like, want to see Pitts actually do something before we go and we start trading the guy that is the a top 3 tight end on the season for a guy that's has seen 7 targets and for 46 yards and kind of ghosted in game in week 2.
So this trade fully depends on how you think the rest of the season narrative plays out. Have the Falcons just been getting used to each other and this new offense with the new quarterback, and now, obviously Kansas City this week, but after this week, it does kind of open up for them a little bit as far as Atlanta's schedule goes. But Kansas City's been giving it up to the tight ends. Mike Gesicki just went for bonkers against Kansas City. Kyle Pitts is better than Mike Gesicki. Like, it just same thing. Isaiah Likely went bonkers against Kansas City. Now, I think that was a little bit of a different reason, because Andrews was playing too, and they were taking some of that coverage and shifting it towards Andrews. But again, Kyle Pitts is better than Isaiah Likely, and I like Isaiah Likely. But Kyle Pitts is a better athlete and a better football player overall, in my opinion. So do we feel like Falcons are coming out of this learning curve, right? And they're on the upward? Do we feel like Kittle's injury is going to be lingering? I hate soft tissue injuries. I hate them. Like both to have them and to watch players on my roster with them because they are a nagging red flag of death to a fantasy football roster. Because at any given moment, none of those injuries ever heal up 100%. And he cuts wrong. He gets in kind of one of those blocking battles and he's trying to drive into the ground and push that off. Like you can tweak a hamstring so easily after it's already been injured that it creates great pause for me. So I think I would do this. Maybe you try and get something back on top, right? Like, okay, Kittle for Pitts, and I need a little bit of depth at receiver or running back. And so then you're trying to grab like their fourth guy, right? Like you're not trying to overdo it, but you're just trying to get a little bit of a sweetener so that way you have some depth on your roster to kind of help play around with here a little bit. Is maybe what you do if you're looking for Pitts in return. But I think in general, I would probably do this. But historically, I've not been the greatest George Kittle fantasy football supporter. Love the guy. Like I love the guy. I would absolutely love to be one of his teammates. Like I like George Kittle. I like the way he acts. I like the way he plays. But last year he had 4 games that really made up his fantasy total. This year, maybe it's a bit different with some of the nagging injuries with McCaffrey and Debo, but now he has a nagging injury of his own. So I would rather take the healthy player.
All right, I like it. Chandler over on YouTube. I have Henry and would rather have Henry over Kelsey. I don't know that I'd go that far.
Yeah, I'd agree. I don't know that I'd go that far. But Henry
Henry has certainly
Henry's
been
been a
far more
very
evolved.
good. Yeah, yes. Henry has Henry's been put in a situation in New England where he is leaned upon heavily. And there's going to be weeks where he absolutely capitalizes, and there's still going to be weeks he completely disappears. So, and Kansas, I'd rather have a piece of Kansas City's offense than New England's at any level.
Right. And this is one of those two, right? Like, yeah, it's very interesting when you kind of look back to last year at this time, right? As far as the some of the weeks and how they kind of manifested themselves when it came to fantasy and all of that. Last year at this time, going into week into week 3, Hunter Henry was the second tight end on the season, right? Going after week 3 he was top 3 tight end, right? Like we've seen this play out quite a few times
This makes
where
more sense. His last comment.
okay, there we go. That makes yes, that does make a he was saying Derrick Henry off
Not
they'd
Hunter
rather take
Henry.
yes,
Okay.
I would agree with that. I would take Derrick Henry over Travis Kelsey for this
Yes.
season as well.
Sorry.
So
Thank you for clarifying. I was stuck in tight end mode.
yeah, so was I. Alrighty, let's go ahead and check this one out. So Chandler over on YouTube saying Carr Purdy, it's a 6-point passing TD, 2 plus 2 points for every 10 passes completed. And how do you not roll the hot hand of Carr?
That's exactly where I'm leaning right now. I'm leaning the hot hand of Carr. So again, the Niners are down a lot of receiving options. Not that he won't heavily target Ayuk, and Jennings will get involved, and they will do some different things. Mason's going to be used like crazy in this game, I think. But I agree. Yeah, I'm going with the high-handed car, right? Deep balls to Shaheed, checkoffs to Kamara. Obviously, Olave's yet to have kind of his breakout game of this season. I think it's coming very soon. I like the implied point total between Philadelphia and New Orleans. So I'm definitely leaning Derek Carr in this situation.
Okay. Yeah, I like it. Alrighty. Let's go ahead and let's hit up a couple more matchups here. We'll kind of rock and roll through that. And again, guys, if you have any questions, comments, anything like that, let's go ahead and throw those in the chat. We'll hit those up and get things rock and rolling here for the upcoming week 3 matchups. Alrighty. So next matchup we've got Houston taking on Minnesota. Houston is favored by 2. The over under on this one is 46. Thoughts on this game?
I might take Houston in this one. I think, I think anytime you beat the 49ers, regardless of the time and place, everybody takes notice, right? Like they're just one of those teams that you don't expect them to lose. And so the fact that Minnesota beat San Francisco last week, uh, injuries regardless, I think Houston made sure that they definitely took some notice of that. And I think they're going to go in there prepared. So I'm going to take Houston to win this game by a field goal. I think we're um, just under in this game, but it should be an exciting one.
Yeah, certainly should be a good one there, right? Like this is one of those that the Texans, coming into this one, they've certainly kind of been a darling here the last kind of couple of seasons and what they went to where they're kind of on the come up there. But the Vikings are certainly having some very early and good success this season, and I think that continues. I don't know that they've got enough to win this one, but I am going to say that I like them getting the points on this one. A lot of that has to do with the fact that the Texans are under D'Amico Ryan in September are 1-4 against the spread. So there is some of that to it, and we've seen them just not cover. Granted, a lot of those spreads were much bigger than the 2 points, but I am going to lean into that trend there and go for that. As far as the over, the under on this one, I do like the under. One of the other props that I really like on this one is Nico Collins to go over his 71.5 receiving yards. We've seen him just fly by this both games of the young season, clearing 100 yards both weeks, and I think that we see another performance like that this week.
I'm taking Sam Darnold over 0.5 interceptions. He just cannot stay away from at least having one a game.
That's fair. That is certainly a good point. Let's go ahead and hit up a couple more games, and we're going to head back to the chat and hit up some questions there. All right, next matchup, we got the New York Giants versus the New Orleans Saints. And
no typo, Cleveland.
Yep. All right, well, let's redo that one then. All right, we've got the Browns taking on the Giants here, and the Browns are favored by 6.5. The over under is 39.5. Thoughts on this one?
I don't know that I can trust the Cleveland Browns to win a game by 7 points at this moment. So I'm going to take the Giants to cover this game. It just seems like a big spread. And here's another game where I'm going to take the under. Like, I'm not blown away by what either offense is doing. I don't think either one is necessarily going to run away from the other. So taking the Giants, taking the under, but I think it's going to be another close one. Like, I think we could easily see 38, even 39. Like, I could be sweating this one out late in the fourth.
Yeah, that certainly could be. Yeah, as much as I want to lean on the Browns because they have had an impressive, an impressive kind of run with their against the spread and home games where they're 6-1 against the spread in their past 7 home games. I don't know that I'm right there with you. I don't know that I can trust the Browns to cover a touchdown in this one, even with the Giants being as bad as they have been. So I do like the Giants to sneak in here and be the road dog that covers. And with that as well, I'm also going to lean on the under. Again, I don't know that we're going to see either one of these teams put up enough points to give this over under a real run. One of the props I really like is Malik Neighbors to go under his 69.5 receiving yards. Again, this is one of those that one, we've got to trust Daniel Jones to throw the ball and get that to him. But moreover, Cleveland has a very good secondary, very good set of cornerbacks there that I think is going to do enough to keep him from reaching 70 receiving yards.
No, fair enough. I'm taking Jerome Ford over 40.5 rushing yards. I know the world is kind of fading him and grabbing Donta Foreman. I'm going to pivot. And I'm going to be contrarian here. I think this is a game where Ford's able to bust a long one, and he gets the bulk of this in one carry.
Yeah, very well could be. All right, let's hit up one more matchup here, and then we're going to head back to the chat. We've got Philadelphia and New Orleans. New Orleans is favored by 3, the over under 49.5. Thoughts on this one?
Man, I am really undecided in this one. I'm torn, Derek. I really am. Like I want to think that the Eagles taking that late loss to Atlanta, and obviously seeing what the Saints did to the Cowboys, again, another kind of attention-grabbing performance, leads a team to make sure that they're doubling down in preparation. On the other hand, New Orleans, first 2 weeks of the season, didn't give a rip who they were playing. They were going to hang a lot of points on you. So I'm going to take the over in this game, and I'm going to take the Saints at home. I just, the Superdome is a crazy place to play. We've seen ridiculous outcomes in this one, so I'm going to give New Orleans the edge, but I really don't like the 3. I wish there was a hook for me to make a decision.
Right. Yeah, 3.5 makes it a much easier type of deal there. But I'm right there with you, right? New Orleans has certainly been a team transformed this year, and I'm gonna, kind of hop on that bandwagon here with the call this week. I do think that that the Saints are certainly, have something kind of just special shaping up there, at least early in the seasons. And they certainly have covered the those spreads so far in the season by a wide margin. I do think this is an incredibly close game that ultimately is going to come down to who has the ball last and kicks that last second field goal. But I am going to take New Orleans on this one. I do think the over is hit early in this game. We've seen New Orleans put up 40 plus points 3 straight games in a row dating back to last season. So wouldn't surprise me that New Orleans gets into that 40 range all by themselves. So this one very well could be that we're dancing with that over under come halftime type of thing. One of the props I really like is Rashid Shaheed to continue his touchdown stretch. And I do like a Rashid Shaheed anytime touchdown with this one.
I'm taking Jalen Hurts over 30.5 passing attempts. He threw over 40 times last week against Atlanta, when really there wasn't a big need to. They should have been using Saquon a bit more. This week, I think they're going to have to with the Saints. They're going to have to play catch up. A lot of back and forth scoring. So I think Hurts puts it in the air at least 31 times.
Okay. I like that thought. All right, let's go ahead and head back over to the chat here and hit some of these up. We got Major Monk over on YouTube. If Evan Ingram isn't healthy, who should I start? Take Ertz or Gesicki?
I'm gonna lean Mike Gesicki. Big week last week. I think found a little bit of momentum. All the talk's been about Chase and Higgins coming back, and I think that Gesicki's proven himself enough to warrant some attention from Joe Burrow. So I think he does have a bit better week than Zach Ertz.
Yeah, this is one of those that for me it kind of comes down to what you need out of this one, right? And out of the tight end position, I think Gesicki certainly has the higher ceiling play when it comes down to it. I think Zach Ertz is a pretty safe floor for you, right? Like Zach Ertz really wouldn't surprise me if you get 4 for 40 on that one, right? You're not going to get much more. You're not going to get much less, but 4 for 40. Whereas with Gesicki, you could see 4 for 40 and a touchdown, 4 for 50 and a touchdown. So I do think that the ceiling is much higher with Gesicki. and the floor's better with Ertz, and that's how I would kind of play that one there. L. Washington over on YouTube. Hi, guys. Would you drop Deontay Johnson for Romeo Doubs in full point PPR? Not until I...
4.
Oh, it's...
It just changes my return question in who are you picking up?
Right. Yeah, if it's or, then yes. If it's for Romeo Doubs, I probably wouldn't. I want to see what this Andy Dalton offense looks like, because the last time we saw him in relief last season, like that offense looked far more capable, and wouldn't surprise me if we see Andy Dalton in the like 250, 275 yardage range, and Deontay Johnson getting peppered with 9-10 targets this week. So L. Washington, let us know kind of what you're thinking there. Is if it's for Romeo Doubs or, and if it's or Romeo Doubs, let us know who you're thinking of picking up with dropping either one of those guys. All right, Jamie asking, what do you think about the over yards for touchdown for Jefferson? Texans allow 70% of their fantasy points to outside wide receivers, averaging 22.5 points per game.
I like him over the yards. I think it's at 80.5. I'm looking for that. Minnesota. Receiving yards.
I've got it 77.5 is what
77.5 is what I'm seeing too. I think he can get to 80 in this game or more. So I like it over the yards. Touchdown. I mean, obviously the long one last week. I think my biggest fear about the touchdown is I'm not convinced Sam Darnold is like they're not to that level, obviously, that Cousins and Jefferson were, where he will just go let him make a play all the time. Like I feel like Jefferson's having to work a little bit harder to get these targets. And sometimes when you get in the end zone, if Sam Darnold's thinking, don't turn the ball over, don't turn the ball over, don't turn the ball over, like he's not going to force that in there. Like he will either take the check down or just throw it away. Where Cousins, I think, would still try and force it into Jefferson a little bit. So the touchdown one scares me, but I do like him going over his yardage prop.
Yeah. Or you'll see Darnold just pull it down and take off with it too, right? He's got the wheels to be able to make some of those types of deals. So if between the two, and that's my option, I'd lean on the over on the yardage to it more so than I like the anytime TD. Jamie saying the Browns defense is so good, but still can't trust them. So taking the Browns money line in the under. I can see that.
That's safe. I like that.
Yeah. Chandler saying that Cleveland game is one where I might take a chance on the Browns defensive touchdown. You could potentially see that. That could be an interesting call there. Jamie, in the past 2 weeks, Denzel Ward has allowed just 2 catches on 8 targets, breaking up 4 passes, also taking the neighbors under on that one. So I like it. Jamie giving us all things Browns stats over there. I love it. All righty. Hurricane over on YouTube, guys, a 10-team PPR. QBs are Kyler, Jaden, running backs Achane, Connor, Mason, Zamir White, Moss, Irving, and Steele. Wide receivers Jamar, Nico, AJ, and Reed. Tight ends McBride. Do I got to make any moves? No.
I don't think so.
No, you've got enough depth.
So. You need AJ to get healthy, right? Yep. Like, and you need Love to come back, so that way you have Reed as a better option. But Jamar and Nico will kind of get you through there, because while you're doing that, you can run with Achane, Connor, and Mason, and you're good. So yeah, I think overall you're sitting in good shape here to weather the injuries that are currently around us.
Yeah, I like it. All right, Major saying thanks over on YouTube. Jamie saying Gesicki also had a touchdown call back in week 1. The NFL admitted the refs did not make the correct call. Lots of folks had their survivor pools on that bad call. I was one of those in the survivor pool. So
yep, I was week 2 with the Ravens blowing it to the Raiders.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Yes. George over on YouTube, start to non-PPR, JMO, Flowers, Moore, or JSN?
JMO and Flowers for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I like what JSN's going to do season long, but this week I don't see it as much. So I'm right there with you. I'm saying JMO and Flowers. All righty. And guys, if you have any other questions, thoughts, concerns, throw them in the chat. Let's go ahead and chat through those and rock and roll through that. Let's go ahead. We're going to head back over into some of these games and keep going through some of the breakdowns here and seeing what we can see. Next up on that, we've got the Denver Broncos. They're heading down to take on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Bucks are favored by 6.5. The over-under on this one is 40.5. Thoughts on this one?
I'm taking Tampa in this one at home. The 40 is kind of interesting because I mean, I could see this being 23-9, right? Like I mean, maybe Denver gets in the end zone, so call it 23-13, but that still doesn't get us there. So I'm going to take the under in this one, but I am going to take Tampa to cover.
I do like that call, right? Like this is one of those that I have a hard time trusting the Broncos to do anything on the offensive side of things. So I'm not a big a big fan of that one. However, the underdogs of at least 6 points are 8-0 against the spread this season, and underdogs of like so there is some of that there is a a whole lot of pause that one gives me, just because 6.5 is a big number to try and beat. But I do think that this is one that we see Tampa Bay walk away with winning by at least a touchdown in this one. I do really like the call on the under there as well, right? Like this is one of those that we really have to see Denver actually put together some semblance of a competent offense. And I don't know that I can trust them to put up more than 13, 14 points when it's all said and done. So Tampa Bay wins this one, wins it pretty easy. And I don't think that we're going to see as much of a game out of Baker and some of these Tampa wide receivers here this week. Some of that due to the fact that Denver is giving up very few points, giving up the fewest fantasy points to opposing wide receivers. And the prop that I am liking is Mike Evans to go under 64.5 receiving yards. Patrick Surtain has held both DK Metcalf and George Pickens to exactly 29 yards in week 1 and week 2. And yeah, if you're feeling really froggy out there, you could really call your shot and say Mike Evans for 29 receiving yards in week 3.
I'm going to take Chris Godwin over 6.5 receptions in this game. I think he's absolutely going to be peppered out of the slot. All the attention is going to be, I shouldn't say all the attention. A lot of attention is going to be on Mike Evans, especially from Patrick Surtain, but the Broncos' second and third defensive backs just do not do as good of a job covering, especially on the crossing routes. So I think Godwin feasts here a little bit, and he's going to end up with 7 or 8 catches in this game.
I could see that. All right, let's go ahead and hit up the next matchup here. We got Green Bay heading to Tennessee. Tennessee favored by 2. The over-under on this one is 38. Thoughts on this one?
I'm taking Green Bay. Like, they shocked the crap out of me last week against Indianapolis. I'm not going to fall for that again. So I'm going to take Green Bay, rallying around each other on the road. Lots of good defense, ground and pound, just enough efficiency out of the passing game to be able to squeak it out. So I'm going to call for the under. I think that neither quarterback is necessarily lighting the world on fire here, but that's okay. So Green Bay and under.
Yeah, this is an interesting one, right? So I'm right there with you on the under, right? When looking at Will Levis and him starting football games, the under comes in a whole lot of those. So I do like the call there. As much as I want to try and lean Tennessee at home, and I can't, right? Like I'm going to go with Green Bay to cover this thing. I think they win by at least a field goal. So I do like that call, and I'm going to lean Green Bay as well. One of the props that I really liked on this one was Calvin Ridley to go over 49.5 receiving yards. We've seen Calvin Ridley, be one of the top leaders when it comes to air yards this young season, and certainly has the ability to break this on one play. So I do like the Calvin Ridley over 49.5 yards.
Right on. I'm going to take Tajay Spears over 1.5 receptions. I just keep thinking Tennessee's got to find a way to get him involved just a little bit more than what he is. What better way than just kind of sprinkling some screenplays into him, right? Get him involved, get him into space, and kind of let him use that wiggle that he has, and maybe you're able to break a big one.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go ahead and head back over to the chat. A couple of comments and questions coming in there. So let's go ahead and hit those up, and then we'll hit up some more games here. George over on YouTube, they have Kittle, but he doesn't play, so I picked up Gesicki. Also, if he doesn't play, should I start Ertz, Strange, or Parkinson? So Kittle's not going to play. That's already been you're kind of called out there. Gesicki, I think, does play. And it kind of goes back to that question earlier, right? Between Gesicki, Ertz, add in Strange or Parkinson. Strange is out for me. Colby Parkinson, I don't know that I trust that that Rams offense right now with as much injuries as they have going on. So it kind of goes back to that same thing from earlier, right? Gesicki for ceiling, Zach Ertz for floor for me.
Coastline.
Okay. Alrighty. Jamie over on YouTube. Yeah, Denver only allowed 17.2 points to opposing fantasy wide receivers, with 5.2 of them going to the slot. So he thinks that take Godwin on the under 2. I don't know on that one. I'm thinking Godwin eats in this game, and that's where most of Tampa Bay's offense comes from.
I'm just thinking it's a whole different level of offense than what they've seen.
It's also very true.
They did a good job holding Seattle down in that first half, right? Because they were pinned deep. Pittsburgh doesn't really throw the ball to their slot receiver at all. So a lot of 12 personnel in that one. So I think Tampa Bay, they're going to see a lot of things different. 13 personnel, trying to spread them out a little bit. They have to be in a lot more nickel, and I think that's where they're going to get into a little bit of trouble.
Right. Yeah, because the outside of Patrick Surtain, the other corners on that one, with both being the opposite corner and the slot corner there, and that nickel corner, certainly have a lot of opportunity. William over on YouTube asking, trade away Jameson Williams for Monty, down bad at running back 2, picked up Akers for this week. Otherwise, I would have been starting Dwaddle or Spears. The running backs or the wide receivers are stacked. Yeah, if you can get Monty for Williams, I would do it.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to that.
Yeah, I like that.
Bring some consistency into it.
Right. And then Jamie saying, good point. The Steelers don't throw to the slot. Also facts. All righty. Let's go ahead and we'll hit up a couple 3 more games here, and then we'll come back to the chat for any other questions, comments that we have out there. And again, guys, if you have any thoughts, question, comments, throw them out in the chat. Let's go ahead and talk about them and help get things ready to rock and roll here for this week. Heading on to Las Vegas and Carolina meeting up. The Las Vegas is favored by 5.5. The over-under on this one is 40. Thoughts on this one?
Taking the under again. Like, just eventually we'll be wrong on all these unders, but the unders are definitely treating the NFL well here for the gambling community going so far. So leaning heavy on those. 5.5 is an interesting number. Like, I think I'm going to take it. I think I'm going to take Vegas to cover the 5.5 on the road. That one might come to bite me here a little bit, but the way that they're using the tight end, Bowers, has been great to help kind of move the chains. Devontae Adams got involved with the late touchdown that won the game for him last week in Baltimore. And I think that win in Baltimore did the Raiders a lot of good for morale. We're going to carry this one through. We'll see more Zamir White this week. With what's perceived to be a positive game script. So we should see a little bit more of him. But yeah, Vegas covers and the under.
Hey, This one here, I'm going to go a little different route on this one. As much as I don't want to call the Panthers or call for the Panthers on this one, I do think that Andy Dalton spices this offense up just enough that we're going to see the ball actually be able to move, some drives sustained there. I do think that we see enough points put up on the board from both of these rosters in order to see this. I think we could see both teams end up with 20 points with this one all said and done. So I do like Carolina to with the points there. I do think that the over comes into play. I do really like that call on Zamir White, right? Earlier in the week, you had Antonio Pierce talking about, utilizing that and really kind of, still showing the support behind Zamir White. So very well could have some decent games there. One of the props I really like was Brock Bowers to go over 4.5 receptions on this one. This is a guy that we've seen getting 8, 9, 10 targets a game, and I think that continues on this one. So I do like the Brock Bowers over 4.5 receptions.
No, I like that. I'm taking Xavier Legette over 1.5 receptions. I think this Andy Dalton, yes, we're going to see Deontay Johnson peppered with a good amount of targets. I about took his until I found Legette's, and just 1.5 just seems a little light. I could see him with 2 or 3 catches fairly easily here in this game with the more competent Andy Dalton under center.
Yeah, I could see that. Alrighty, let's go ahead and hit up the next one here. We've got Miami and Seattle. Seattle favored by 4.5. The over under 41.5. Thoughts on this one?
I'm Seahawks 4.5. I'm going to take the Seahawks to cover this one. And again, the under. I think points are going to be at a premium for Miami with Skylar Thompson at quarterback. This one could just get kind of funky and ugly. So, truth be told, I'm not going to be betting anything about this game. I'm just uncomfortable about a lot of it. But we have to do it for these purposes. My boss tells me so. So I'm going to take Seattle. I'm going to take the under.
Okay. I'm going to go on the other side of that. I'm going to go with Miami, right? This is more of a case that when everybody is saying that that it's going to be one thing, I'm going to go with the other side of that one, right? I think that Miami does just enough to keep this thing close. They've got enough dynamic playmakers to certainly be able to to get the ball out in space and potentially try and keep things close that way. So I do think Miami keeps this thing just inside the 4.5. I do think that the under comes into play on this one of the 41.5. And one of the props that I do like is Devon Achane to go over 23.5 receiving yards.
No, I'm taking Zach Charbonnet over 2.5 receptions. I did not love a lot of the props in this game, especially on the Miami side, with having Skylar Thompson there under center. So I'm going to take Charbonnet over 2.5 receptions with Kenneth Walker being listed out with the oblique injury.
All right, I like it. Let's hit up one more, and then we're going to head back into the chat and hit up some of those questions and comments. All righty, we got Detroit and Arizona. Detroit is favored by 3. The over-under on this one is 51.5. Thoughts on this one?
I'm going to take Detroit, and I'm going to take the over. I think we're going to see some points in this one, but it should be a really fun game to watch if it's in your local area, or if you're streaming it, all the different ways you can see it. But I do think this game's gonna be a lot of fun. So Detroit in the over for me.
I like it. I'm going to be right there with you on the over. I do think that this is an incredibly high scoring affair, right? Like we've seen the Cardinals put up points. We've seen Detroit put up points. Neither one of these defenses have been overly imposing in their will against an opposing team this season. So I do think that there's going to be plenty of points scored in this one. I'm going to lean on the Arizona side with the points on this one. Kyler Murray has been incredible as a against the spread. as an underdog throughout his career. So I'm going to lean on that one. I do think that the Lions end up winning this one, but I think this is a one maybe 2 point type of game when it's all said and done. So I am going to go ahead and lean on Arizona to cover that. One of the props that I really liked on this one was Khalif Raymond to go under 19.5 receiving yards. This is one of those that a little bit scary from the standpoint that they could take care of this in one play, but I just don't see Khalif Raymond seeing the field enough to get enough opportunities for 19.5 yards.
No, fair enough. I'm taking Jared Goff under 266.5 passing. I think he does get fairly close and kind of flirts with this number, but ultimately, I think Detroit, yes, I think this game's going to hit the over, but I think they're going to be able to do a lot of good things on the ground with as dominant as that offensive line is.
Right? Like, if you got Monty, you roll it. Like, I think that he's going to have a monster game in this one. All right, let's go ahead and hit back to the chat and hit up some of these questions and comments here. William over on YouTube saying, thanks, fellas. Also start JSN this week. The Miami nickel corner is not very good. So Jamie was commenting back that he likes JSN this week too, with Ramsey covering Metcalf, Lockett, and the Dolphins allow 60% of the wide receiver points to the slot. So there's some good points there. Philly Mike, welcome back in, Philly Mike. Got offered Kamara for Ayuk and Puka. Some of that depends on what the rest of your wide receiver room looks like.
Yeah, can you?
And the running backs at that point.
Can you absorb that? That's a fairly hefty price tag to pay with Puka already serving, this will be week 2 of his IR stint. So that one's a little interesting.
Yeah. Philly Mike, I tell you what, if you can post the roster in there so we can kind of see what that looks like, that would certainly provide some better guidance there. And when William was also saying that Geno is completing most of his passes and has one of the lowest times to throw so far. And Philly Mike saying that the roster: Mike Evans, Mike Evans, Garrett Wilson, Christian Kirk, Keon Coleman, Deontay Johnson, and Christian Watson. And the running backs were Aaron Jones, Jonathan Taylor, and Kyle Pitts. Also has Jalen Warren.
So are we talking 2 different leagues here between Kamara, Ayuk, and Puka? I don't see any 3 of those names listed on the roster. So I'm a little confused here at the moment.
He also has Andy Dalton, Will Levis, and Tyler Hunt. So yeah, Philly Mike, I'm kind of in the same boat with Kevin there, where I'm not really certain where Kamara and Ayuk and Puka come into that. If they're would you be receiving Kamara and you also have Ayuk and Puka on this roster to go with Garrett Wilson, Mike Evans, Christian Kirk, Keon Coleman, Deontay Johnson, and Christian Watson? So while we wait for, it's all the same question. All right. So at that point, then I'm just curious if I should also trade Wilson too. You certainly shouldn't trade the 3 wide receivers for Kamara. And he has Puka and Ayuk. So Puka, Ayuk, Garrett Wilson, Mike Evans, Christian Kirk, Keon Coleman, Deontay Johnson, and Christian Watson are is the wide receiver room. I don't know that you have to give up all of that to get Kamara. Right? Like those are meant separate. Okay. So at that point, looking like it would be should he trade Garrett Wilson?
I wouldn't. It's only going to get better, right? It's the second game, third game. that Rodgers and Wilson played together. Wilson got his touchdown. Like, they will continue to build that chemistry. And I I would not want to get rid of Garrett Wilson. I think it's only going to get better from here. So I think you ride that one out. As far as Kamara, I don't know that I hate this necessarily. Like, I think short term, you definitely lean Kamara. The way this offense is playing, I get it. It's Puka coming back at the same time Cup comes back. I'm still leaning Cup. Like, I liked Cup more than Puka heading into this year. Um, there's still a ton of offensive line woes going on for the LA Rams. So a lot of quick routes. That's mainly Cooper Cup's deal. So I think I do this, but I also love running backs. Like, I understand the need for wide receivers, but I am still a little old school. Like, I love running backs. So I don't know that I hate this, knowing that you have Evans and Garrett Wilson to kind of lean on to anchor your wide receiver room.
Yeah, I don't mind the Kamara side as well. I don't know that I want to give up both Ayuk and Puka. I get it. Early season has had some issues here, but I think after this week, you're going to see Ayuk kind of take that step there and kind of return to form a little bit, especially with everything going on with the rest of the pass catchers in San Francisco. So I would see if that deal could get done with either Ayuk and like a Christian Kirk, or a Christian Kirk and Puka, and just see what that may look like, and kind of go from there. But I have a hard time you kind of going that route with when you're talking. Puka was still a first, second round type of pick, and we haven't really seen what that looks like here with that injury yet. And I think that he'll still be good down the stretch for you. So I don't know that I want to give up both of those guys when down the stretch you could be talking about some pretty good game changers there. So alrighty. Let's go ahead and let's hit up another couple of matchups here, and then we'll come back to the chat and any questions, comments, anything like that in there. Before we do that, though, were there any other thoughts there on Philly Mike's trade question? Okay.
No, I'm good.
Alrighty. Let's go ahead and hit up next matchup here. We got Baltimore. We got Dallas. Baltimore favored by 1.5. The over/under in this one is 48. Thoughts on this one?
I'm taking the Ravens. They're 0-2. I think they need it a little bit more than the Cowboys do. Both teams took a loss last week, which I was not expecting. The Ravens cost me my survivor pool. That is what it is. Life goes on. So I'm taking that. I'm going to take the over, though. I think there's going to be some points in this game. Obviously, Dallas gave up a crap ton last week to New Orleans, and the Ravens ended up getting a bunch of points late they're giving up some points late for the Raiders to get back into that game. So I do think we see a bit more of a shootout-ish type game, but Baltimore is going to find a way to come out ahead on this one. So I'm going to take Baltimore in the over.
I do like that over call. I think that we're going to see lots of points put up in this one, and I think we see this thing easily blow by that 48 and a half type of number that's out there, to the point where I think we get close to 60 when this thing's all said and done. So I do like that over a lot. As far as that go, I've got to go with Dallas, right? They're at home. They certainly had a game in which they'd like to forget last week, but I do think that we see them bounce back and rebound off of that. And the Cowboys are, over the last few seasons, are 7-1 as home underdogs there, and 4-1 under Mike McCarthy. So I do think that there is certainly some good things on that one, and I think that we see Dallas bounce back here. One of the props that I really like is Isaiah Likely to go under 3.5 receptions. I have a feeling we're going to see a Mark Andrews type of game here, and Isaiah Likely not as much in this one.
No, fair enough. I'm going to piggyback off of that. I'm going to take Mark Andrews over 38.5 receiving yards.
Okay. Alrighty, let's go ahead and hit up the next matchup here. We've got, I think I'm off somewhere. All right.
Sorry, I can cover that one.
That's all right. All right, let's go ahead. We've got the Rams and the San Francisco 49ers next up on the list. We got San Francisco favored by 6.5. The over under on this one 43.5. Thoughts on this one?
I'm going to take the Niners by a touchdown. I think their defense is going to win this for them. I could see a defensive touchdown possibly by the Niners as Stafford's trying to force it into receivers who aren't used to playing and kind of doing things the way that he wants it done. So I'm leaning the Niners. They're going to cover here. I think this game is weird and we get to the over. Like, I want to take the under in every sense of this game. But I think this is kind of one of those situations where everybody thinking this is going to be a low-scoring game. We're going to find a way for points to get on the board. So I'm going to take the over, but San Francisco wins this by a touchdown.
Yeah, as much as I want to, lean on this being a closer game than that touchdown, the Kyle Shanahan and the Niners have certainly had Sean McVay's number when it comes to that. Not only that, the Niners have hit 75%, been 75% against the spread in division games since 2022 on against the spread, right? So I do like that the Niners cover this thing. I do think that the over comes into it. I think we get that kind of sneaky over that comes into this one. So any other thoughts on this matchup?
No, I think a player to watch out for, I guess yes. I think a player to watch out for is Jordan Whittington. We heard some really good things about him in the preseason. He's going to be playing that Cooper Cup role, so I do have him with over 3.5 receptions. I think he's going to be able to come down with 4 or 5 this game.
Okay. Oh, and I guess my prop, I totally missed that one, but I think Matt Stafford goes over 213.5 passing yards. This is, again, one of those I think can turn into a little bit of a shootout type of game here. And Matt Stafford has been just plugging and chugging along, putting up plenty of yards. And I think that continues. All right, let's go ahead and head back to the chat here. And Philly Mike has some more questions for us on this one. Mike, Philly Mike is saying that he was being offered Gibbs and Carson Steele for Garrett Wilson.
No, I don't think I'm doing that.
Yeah, that's close.
Like, I like the idea of Gibbs, and ultimately it's probably fair, but I do think it leaves too big of a hole at wide receiver. Like, I think that I think the offer's fair, but ultimately I'm going to keep Garrett Wilson. I think we've seen the worst of his season the first 3 weeks. I think he only gets better from here.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that thought there. And as much as I like Gibbs, I don't want the guy that is in truly a timeshare, right? And almost a 50-50 split there, and the guy that doesn't get the goal line work in the 50-50 split, right? Like, Carson Steele's a nice piece in the interim, but again, that's one of those that we could very well see Carson Steele be a 1 or 2 week rental before Kansas City does something completely different. So, like, I get it. I'd rather have the Garrett Wilson side of things. Philly Mike saying that he's about to slam it. It is certainly your team, and you can manage it how you'd like it.
And it's close, right?
Yeah,
like,
it
I'm
is.
not saying it's taking you for a ride. Like, it is a close deal. So if you're in a pinch, go for it. Like, obviously, I don't hate the offer. I tend to like Wilson a bit more in this instance. And it's just me. You got to live with the team. I don't. I just get to talk about it.
That's fair. Philly Mike said that he needs the running backs, and then gives us the I think that's a Gur face, maybe. I'm
It's a
not sure what
something face.
I'm not sure what emoji that is, but I kind of like it. It's kind of funny there. Alrighty, so Philly Mike, it's it's one of those that again, right? It comes back to we kind of those are our thoughts on that one. But it is certainly your team, and you can manage that one how you'd like to. And if you're really feeling that you need running backs, or you're looking at the league and feeling that you're at a significant disadvantage, those offers are not out of line for it. Just we would both kind of lean a little different way there. All righty. Frozen Gaming over on YouTube. I don't know that we've seen them in the chat before, so welcome in. Should I trade Kyron and Rice for Hall?
No.
Yeah,
I wouldn't. I feel like they're really trying to take advantage of the fact that Kyron had a couple down weeks. So it's definitely a buy low and a 2-for-1, because Rice should probably at least be in your flex with the way he's playing. So unless you are absolutely loaded at wide receiver, I'm not doing that. And if you are loaded at wide receiver, maybe you look at flipping one of the receivers for Hall instead of Rice and Kyron for Hall. So I don't love that one. It does not feel right to me.
right. Like I can understand the thought about trying to get Brees Hall, right? RB2 on the season through 3 games. Averaging about 17.7 points a game, whereas Rashee Rice in half point PPR scoring is only putting about 15.1. So you do get a little bit there, right? The Kyron certainly has had a slower start there, but Rashee Rice is a guy that should be in your starting lineup there, and I wouldn't be moving on off that one either, right? Like you're essentially trading away about 28 to 30 points a week in half point PPR scoring to get a guy that does 17 to 18. Like that's no. Jamie over on the YouTube saying that he's taking the under 67.5 on Kyron. He had 2.8 and 2.1 yards per carry the last 2 weeks. Don't see him getting 27 attempts. I mean, that very well could be. Right? Like some of the efficiency on the running back, comes from the line and him not getting touched in the backfield or at the line of scrimmage and allowing them to at least get to the line of scrimmage before seeing a linebacker and or a defensive lineman and being able to fall forward for 3 or 4 yards. So Jamie's saying that they liked Whittington over 40 plus yards this week. Terry, welcome back in, Terry, over on YouTube. Pick one: Amari Cooper, Alec Pierce, Brian Thomas Jr., or Ridley this week. Full PPR.
I'm leaning Ridley.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm leaning that way as well. I've got I don't know what else to call it, but I've got I've got a gut feeling that Pierce has another good game, but the smart move I would lean on Ridley this week. Any other thoughts on this one?
Nope.
All right, Jamie over on YouTube. San Francisco has allowed 26.8 points to the slot, and Whittington's played 67% of the snaps in the slot. So kind of goes back to what you're thinking, that Whittington will have a very good game this week. Jamie saying Kyron and a first for Brees. Potentially, if you're going on a dynasty league, I think that Philly Mike's probably more in a redraft style there. Tyler over on YouTube, would you pick up Odunze, Shakir, or Naylor?
I'm picking up Shakir.
Yeah, I would rank that Shakir, Odunze, Naylor.
I have not been drinking the Caleb Williams Kool-Aid. that is not where I've been drinking that Kool-Aid. Yes, Keenan Allen's dinged up, but you gotta show me you can consistently throw over 200 yards a game. Right. I'd rather take the better offense. With really just as high of a target share. Shakir has just a higher target share than Odunze, on a better offense with a better quarterback. I would rather have a piece of Buffalo than Chicago.
Okay. Jamie saying that they like the Adunze side of it. I'm with you though. I do think that the Shakir side of things a little bit better and a little bit more stable for the early here. Tyler over on YouTube, in case Love doesn't play, redraft. So going back to the question there, just some more information for it.
Shakir.
Alrighty. Terry over on YouTube, best ad, full point PPR, Deontay Johnson, Christian Watson, Tyler Bigsby, Tyler Algier, or Tank Bigsby, I'm sorry, Tyler Algier, Blake Corum. They have Kyron, Keon Coleman, or Guarnero.
Man.
At this point, I'm leaning like Terry with all of these guys. You're really taking a dart throw, right? And with this one, I think the best dart throw that I'm seeing would be the Deontay Johnson. I want to see what this looks like with him and Andy Dalton, because I do think that we're going to see Andy Dalton get 250, 275 through the air on this one, and I think that that Deontay is going to be the primary target guy there, and I think it's not going to surprise me if we see him walk away with 10 targets at the end of this week.
Yeah, I'll co-sign on that. I like the list though. Like I like Christian Watson. I know Love, isn't playing right now, but I still like Christian Watson. I like the idea of Blake Corum being the Kyron owner, or just because, right? We've seen how that works, and typically, if possible, I'm a big fan of handcuffing your top running back. So I think either one of those, and I'm not going to completely have a fit about it, but ultimately, I do think Deontay is probably the best choice out of this mix.
Jamie also likes the Deontay pick there as well. All right, let's go ahead and head back. We'll hit up a few more games here, and then hit up the chat here as well. So, any other questions, comments, all of that, throw them in the chat. We'll hit those up here. Next matchup, we got the Sunday night game, Kansas City, Atlanta. Kansas City is favored by 3. The over under 46.5. Thoughts on this one?
I'm taking Kansas City in the over on this one. Just straight to it. Points, a lot of fun. I think there's going to be some good back and forth here, but ultimately Kansas City, they just find a way. They just find a way. So, and with there not being a hook means the push, I get my money back. Like I'll take that.
Yeah, I like the Kansas City call there as well, right? Like it's still Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins still hasn't been great against the spread throughout his career in this one, especially in primetime games. Or let me rephrase it. Kirk Cousins hasn't been good in primetime games against the spread. So I do think Kansas City gets that job done. Kansas City does been finding ways to just kind of win games, regardless of how that looks. So I do think that this one is going to be be a really kind of a field goal type of game, but I do think Kansas City finds a way to cover it. I do think that you're right. I do think we see a bunch of points put up in this one here. And one of the props that I really liked was Darnell Mooney to go under 3.5 receptions.
I'm taking Kyle Pitts over 38.5 receiving yards. So, kind of touched on it earlier. The Chiefs gave it up to Isaiah Likely in week 1. They gave it up to Mike Gesicki in week 2. I'm not saying Pitts is going to absolutely go off, but I am saying the 38.5 is very low considering we've seen this for the first 2 weeks out of Kansas City. And again, Atlanta's offense is continuing to gel, and they're finding out what is and isn't working, and Pitts is yet to be a major focal point. And I think this week he is more of a focal point than he has been the first 2 weeks.
Okay, I like it. All right, let's go ahead and hit up one of the 2 Monday night games here. We've got Jacksonville heading to Buffalo. Buffalo's favored by 5.5. The over-under is 45.5. Thoughts on this one?
Buffalo under. I don't know why this game isn't more, but I'm liking it. Buffalo at home, give me the under only because I don't see Jacksonville being able to put up very many points. They're offensively, their passing game has looked atrocious the first few weeks. Their defense is doing everything they can to try and hold in there, but that's not even really working anymore. So Buffalo fairly comfortably in this one, but we do get to, we definitely hit the under. I don't think we see more than 46.
Yeah, I think you're right. I do like the Buffalo call in this one, right? The Jaguars have been absolutely atrocious against the spread over the last few seasons in prime time type of games. I don't think that changes here. I do like Buffalo to go out there and get the job done, especially with it being in Buffalo. I do think that we see a lesser points in this one. So I do like the under on this one. One of the props that I really like was James Cook to go over 18 and a half receiving yards. This is one of those that, again, like this is a one touch type of play. He could easily take care of this in one play. And I do think that we probably see him get 3-4 receptions throughout this game.
There you go. I'm taking Travis Etienne over 49 and a half. Little dangerous here, but Buffalo just gave up a crap ton of yards to Devon Achane. So I think Etienne should be able to do that, especially if Buffalo stays in that too high shell that they ran against Miami last week.
I like it. All righty, let's go ahead and hit up the last matchup of the week. We got the other Monday night game, Washington, Cincinnati. Cincinnati's favored by 7.5. The over under 47. Thoughts on this one?
Give me Cincinnati. T. Higgins coming back. The passing defense from the Commanders is absolutely atrocious. So I think we do see Cincinnati as a whole offense really kind of come to shine on this one. So I think they win this game walking away. And I'm still taking the under, though. 47 is a big number for a Washington team that I don't think that they're going to score more than, 13 to 17 points.
Yeah, I was wanting to lean on the over, but you just talked me into the under on this one as well. I do think though that Washington manages to lose this thing by only a touchdown. That hook is scaring me off of this one, so I'm going to lean on the Washington side of things. I do think that this is a 24-17 matchup when it's all said and done. So I do like the under. I do like Washington to keep this within a touchdown. And one of the props that I really like was Brian Robinson to go over 12.5 rushing attempts.
Oh, very good. I'm taking Jamar Chase over 80.5 receiving yards. I think he absolutely feasts this game on Monday night.
Okay, I like it. All righty, let's go ahead and hit up any the kind of the last questions and comments we have on there, guys. If you have any other questions, comments, concerns, anything like that going in here to the week 3 matchups, go ahead and throw them in the chat here. We're gonna go ahead and hit up the kind of the final comments here, and then we're gonna call it a night. Jamie over on YouTube saying that they drafted Corum everywhere. They're not a Kyron fan. Jamie also saying that with the Chiefs running back situation might lead for more targets for the wide receivers and let Kelsey perform a little bit more so. And Jamie's liking the over on Mooney because the Chiefs are good versus slot where McLeod plays and McDuffie should cover London most of the game. So maybe, right? Like, be nice to see the Darnell Mooney continue to kind of stretch there, but I just don't see it happening 2 weeks in a row. So I think we see the under. Any other thoughts on those comments?
Nah, garbage time's a beautiful thing. That's where Mooney gets to the over.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Jamie's saying, let's go win some money. That is the nice thing, right? All righty, guys. If you have any questions, comments, anything like that, let's get them in the chat, and we'll go ahead and hit through final thoughts here and call it a night if no other comments are coming in here. So, Kevin, any final thoughts out there for the viewers and listeners?
Nothing too crazy. Obviously, a lot of wide receiver injuries. People are trying to move things around. A lot of questions around the LA Rams, which makes a ton of sense, and trying to figure out what's going on. So, as we continue to get injury reports and everything on Saturday, feel free to hit us up at Good Old Boys FF, wherever you guys get your social media content. And between Derek and Alex and I, we try and answer everything as quickly as possible and as efficiently as we can. So, good luck, and like Jamie said, go get that cash and trophy.
Right, absolutely. And since there aren't any other questions, comments coming in here, we're gonna call it a night. Jamie saying thanks, guys. Appreciate all your knowledge. Appreciate everybody having tuned in and chimed in, and all the questions and the comments. It always makes the shows a lot of fun when we get all the questions and comments and able to interact with everybody out there. So very much appreciate everybody tuning in, chiming in, and throwing all those questions in there. But like Kevin said, any questions heading in the weekend, you can certainly hit us up Good Old Boys FF through all the different socials. Be sure that you head over to YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. One of the best places to help support this independent podcast. But that's going to do it for us. We'll be back again live come 11 p.m. Eastern on Tuesday night, talking waiver wires, recapping games, all of that good stuff. And that's going to do it for us. He's Kevin. I'm Derek. Have a good one. Be safe. Toodaloos.